Hello again, YouTube, and welcome back to my second video where I just decided to get up on my soapbox and talk about the things that are on my mind. In my last video, I discussed the state of my mind after a long string of failures. Just want to make it abundantly clear that I'm not like depressed or anything. Like, I don't feel bad. Things happen the way that they happen, and that's life. So I don't want anyone out there who might be following me to think that I am disappointed with the state of my life, because that is just not the case. I have a lot to be thankful for. I have a lot that I appreciate in my life, and I just in my last video I just wanted to go over my mindset after just hitting a wall time and time again. But in this video, I thought it would be pretty pertinent to talk about one of my biggest regrets in life. It's nothing too crazy, but I think, as always, I said this in my last video, if anybody gets anything out of this, that's pretty much all I'm hoping for. But without further ado, the one of the biggest things that I regret not doing in my life is joining the military. And that's for a couple of different reasons. Number one, I think that it would have ingrained discipline in me a lot earlier than I found it otherwise. I say a lot earlier than otherwise because I fancy myself as somebody who has a decent amount of discipline in their overall mindset, and I kind of, in my mind, held a gold standard to that, at least in the confines and the context of my own family. But the reason why I regret not joining the military at all, I was going to say at a younger age, but obviously that's not the case, is because I think that it would have ingrained a deeper sense of discipline and responsibility in my life. Now, I don't agree with like the vast majority of conflicts and politics that the U.S. has been in over the past, I don't know, 30 years at this point, probably earlier than that. But I'm not educated in that, and I'm not going to talk about that stuff. The reason why I regret not joining the military is I feel like it would have forced me to grow as a person a lot earlier I than I ended up growing in my young adult life, at least so far. And it extends a little bit more than that. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I really like firearms. I like to shoot. It's a lot of fun. I only own one weapon, but I love to go to the shooting range and rent what I can and shoot the biggest things that I can and try to hit the target and blah blah blah. It's a lot of fun. It's very cathartic. If anybody out there has the chance to do that on a regular basis, or purchase a firearm for self defense or like home defense or just sports shooting, it's a very, very good stress reliever. And I wish I knew more about them, and I wish I owned more, and I want to shoot more in my life. So that's one of the reasons why I regret not joining the military, was to have a greater respect and understanding of firearms, to have more discipline in my life, and then to acquire a skill is something that I think is really undervalued in joining the United States military. It's no secret that the U.S. military is the most powerful fighting force in the history of our planet, and that's its own type of thing. I mean, it's a really cool fact. It's fascinating. It's interesting to see how we got there, even though everyone probably already knows. Just vast amounts of funding and unparalleled to that of literally any other country. But I think that joining the military would have been something that would have benefited me greatly. If you're out there and you're watching this and it's something that you're considering, I think you should do it. There's almost nothing to lose. You only sign up for 4 years at the start, and then if you want to re-enlist, you could do that. And there's plenty of different jobs in the military to choose from, depending on what you score on the initial entry test. I think it's called the ASVAB or ASVAB, probably ASVAB, I think. That will give you a bigger net to cast as far as which jobs you actually want to do. I fell into computers in my late teens, early 20s, and I have no formal education in IT. I just kind of figured it out as I went. I'm pretty sure I went over this in my last video, but it's an important context to look back on when talking about one of my biggest regrets not being, actually being in the military at one point. To go back to the beginning, like I said, I think it ingrains a certain level of discipline in you, a certain level of respect for several different things. And I just feel like it would have been a really great character builder for me. Granted, if I would have joined when was possible for me, then I definitely would have been involved in some kinetic conflict. That more than likely being the 20 plus year war in the Middle East that the U.S. got out of not too many years ago in just an embarrassing fashion. But I'll leave that to the politic YouTubers. That's not something I'm going to get into. But yeah, I think that joining the military is undervalued in our society. We don't have a draft. We haven't had a draft since Vietnam, if I'm not mistaken. And again, that was its own thing. That was its own Bay of Pigs, I guess. We didn't really come out of that with anything to show for it, and a lot of people got real fucked up in every sense of the word. But I still think that joining the military is a good idea for a lot of people. It gives you it will give you an appreciation for a lot of different facets of life. I have a lot of friends that have served, or I've had a lot of friends that have served, and when they were joining up and going through basic and all that stuff, it's always that little thing in the back of my mind of, oh, how would I have done? Is that something that I could have done? Blah blah blah. I never grew up in a military family. I remember very distinctly, actually, a recruiter calling my house when I was younger and asking to speak to an adult, and trying to just making cold calls to see if anybody in the household wanted to join up. And I actually remember very vividly of my mom just hanging up on the recruiter. I didn't really think that much of it at the time, but now looking back on it, it's kind of a messed up thing to do. Simple no thank you would have sufficed, or not interested, or something along those lines. Especially given just all the sacrifices different service members have made, and what it took to get our country to this point. I know that's very idealistic and very philosophical, but you don't end up with a country like the United States without individuals being idealistic and philosophical and thinking about the future and what it could hold, and the different things that you're fighting against, and blah blah blah. But yeah, there is probably one other regret that I would even consider going into, but that being said, the military is probably one of my biggest one, if not the biggest one. Yeah, the other thing, screw it, I'll just talk about it now. The other thing is not picking a marketable skill at a very young age. And ironically, that would tie into my regret of not joining the military in the first place, because I would have gotten that marketable skill if I enlisted, at least on paper. Right now I do work in IT. My official title is a data center operator, and it's not as fancy as it might sound. I just babysit a bunch of AC units for a data center where I work and make sure nothing blows up. Got to make calls to different vendors to make sure everything is running properly. A lot of maintenance, stuff like that. But if I would have joined the military and gone into some sort of a cyber security or cyber warfare division or section of the military, I would have had something on paper to show for it. At least it would have looked fantastic on a resume. Probably would have been better, or probably would have been in a better position than what I'm in now. But it doesn't necessarily stop or extend to just IT work. I could have been doing anything. I could have been an engineer. You know, it could have been a firearms instructor, which I think would have been pretty cool. Um, it the list is very, very long. But I think the military is a really good springboard for a lot of people who don't necessarily enjoy the classroom environment. I never did. I dropped out of community college. I never liked it. It was just not for me. I learn much better when I'm actually doing the thing that I'm training to do, and learning on the job. That's just how I've always learned. I've never been good in a classroom environment. My grades were never that great. But I'm also not an idiot. You know, like it's not like I don't have the intelligence to cut it. It just never vibed with me. Never something that I wanted to do or sit through. Or a lot of times when they force you to take certain prerequisite courses like math or biology or whatever, it's never something that I thought was going to be directly pertinent to the field that I was going to go into. And I just kind of mentally checked out. It just wasn't something that I saw value in. Maybe that was the wrong decision. Maybe it was just the wrong way to look at it, the wrong attitude to have. But that's just what happened. And then, like I said in my previous video, I bounced around from job to job in a different office environment, doing desktop work and learning how different IT environments work until I wound up where I am now. You know, I've got a good gig. It's just monetarily not enough. My benefits are great, so that's not nothing, but it's still hard to support a family of four, myself included, on my salary. But anywho, I guess my two biggest regrets in life would be not joining the military and not deciding on a marketable skill early on in my life. So if you're a parent out there and you're trying to figure out like how to manage your kids or like which direction to push them in, and if they express interest in the military, I would not discourage them from that. It's not like the U.S. is in any hot kinetic conflict right now. I mean, obviously, who knows what the future holds for the country, because the war machine that is the United States always seems to, you know, get our grubby little hands in some conflict overseas. You know, thankfully, it's never been on American soil, but you know, it never been conflict free for our entire 250-year history. So that's something to consider. But yeah, so not joining the military, not getting a marketable skill early on. I don't really dwell on this that often. I do think about the military semi often, but the marketable skill, since I've kind of fallen into computers, it's not like I am starving week to week. So that's something. But yeah, like I said before, if anybody gets anything out of this, that's really the only thing that I could ask for. If anybody wants me to talk about any specific topic, or if they got a question or whatever, please leave a comment. I'm happy to interact with all of them. So with that being said, if you made it this far, thank you very much. Thank you for listening. I'll be back next week with another video. What that topic would be, couldn't really tell you right now, but I plan on continue making these week over week. So thank you again, and see you in the next one. Peace.